Hello, Tim Tucker here from United Way Central Ohio Tax Time Training. In this series of videos, we're going to be covering the Ohio School District income tax. In part one, we're going to talk about the basics. In part two and beyond, we will cover specific details and work a number of examples ranging from the straightforward to the rather complex. What tax years do these training videos cover? Ohio did a major overhaul of the school district income tax form for tax year 2023. Part one of this series of videos is generic enough to be applicable to all years. Parts two and beyond are going to be specific to 2023 and hopefully beyond if Ohio doesn't make changes going forward. Let's go over some basic background info related to school districts and the school district tax. There are approximately 611 school districts in the state of Ohio. Each of these school districts is identified by a four-digit number and a name. Every taxpayer lives in one of these school districts. Of the 611 school districts, 212 impose a school district tax, so about a third of the school districts are taxable school districts. There are two flavors of school district tax, which we're going to cover in more detail later, and they're known as traditional and earned income. Now, in Franklin County, the following are the taxing school districts at the time of this writing. There's Bexley, Canal Winchester, Reynoldsburg, Jonathan Alder, Pickerington, Tees Valley, and Madison Plains. And for each of these, I show the four-digit number that identifies the school district, as well as the flavor of the school district tax, traditional or earned income. School district tax filing is accomplished by pulling in the SD100 when we do the Ohio income tax return. Only certain taxpayers must file an SD100. Not everybody has to file it, and we're going to discuss more on this later. And finally, the Ohio Department of Taxation is the body that collects and distributes the tax on behalf of the taxing school districts. How do I find out the school district of my taxpayer? We use the Ohio Finder tool to find out the school district number and the name, as well as the county that the taxpayer lives in. I've shown the URL to use for the Finder tool here. There's also a link in the description of this video called Useful Websites, and in that link in that document you will find a link to the Finder tool. Finder actually has several different addresses to go to, and some of them don't provide all the information you need. The URL shown here and the one in my Useful Websites document gives the most convenient URL to go to. So you can see on the left side of the slide what the Finder looks like. What you will type in is the street address and the zip code. You don't need to put in the city name. Then click the lookup button, and you will get a result that looks like what's shown on the right. The information you're going to need there is, first of all, the county. In this case, I looked up an address in Reynoldsburg, and it shows it's in Franklin County. And it shows the school district information. So this is the Reynoldsburg City School District. Its four-digit code is 2509, and it turns out it is a taxing school district. It uses the traditional taxing method, and it shows the tax rate, which is 0.5%. If you look up an address that is a non-taxing school district, the percentage will show 0, and you'll know that it's non-taxing that way. As shown by this snippet here, the Ohio IT 1040 instructions also lists all the school districts in Ohio. This can sometimes be helpful, and here's an example to illustrate how. You look up a taxpayer in the Finder, and it shows that the taxpayer lives in a non-taxing school district, but the W-2 for the taxpayer shows that they had some local withholding for a taxing school district, and you just have the four-digit number, so you wonder what's going on here. So you pull open the IT 1040 instructions PDF and you search for that four-digit number and you find out the name of the school district. At that point, you can have a conversation with the taxpayer and say, hey, by the way, did you live in this school district at any time during the tax year because you're having withholding for that school district. And you may find out, oh, he lived there for part of the year, or maybe he lived there a prior year, but they've never corrected the W-2s. And based on the answer, we can make a determination of what direction to go. Who needs to file the ST-100? Taxpayers who lived in one or more taxing school districts at any time during the tax year. Even if you had no filing requirement, Ohio recommends that you file to avoid something called the delinquency billing, which I think is kind of a scary letter that you'll get that you may owe taxes. Taxpayers who did not live in a taxing school district at any time during the year but had withholding taken out for a taxing school district will need to file. So this is a case where you mistakenly had school district tax withheld, and we're going to need to fill out the ST-100 to get this mistaken withholding refunded. Now let's talk about the two flavors of school district tax. The two flavors are traditional and earned income. The traditional school district tax is based on the Ohio modified adjusted gross income, and the Ohio modified adjusted gross income is based on the federal adjusted gross income. So what that means is this includes earned income like your W-2 wages, your self-employment income, as well as some unearned income such as pensions, IRA, 401k. The earned income school district tax is, as its name implies, based only on earned income. So that would include W-2 wages and self-employment income. How does employer school district tax withholding work? Well, here's how it's supposed to work. The employee submits an IT form to the employer, which gives the employer sufficient information to know that this employee lives in a taxing school district. Then the employer is supposed to hold the proper school district tax, which will show up on the employee's pay stubs and on the end of the year W-2. Now, it sometimes does not work, and this is something we see all too often. We see residents of a taxing school district have nothing withheld, or a resident of a non-taxing school district has school district tax mistakenly held. And in subsequent videos, we're going to learn how to deal with both of these scenarios. So how does the school district withholding show up on W-2? Unfortunately, there's a variety of ways it can show up, and we need to be aware of all those ways. So I've made up a few examples on this slide, on the next slide, of what you might see. And for my example, I'm using Reynoldsburg, which is school district 2509, which is a taxing school district. First, I want to point out that you can see in the local tax section, there are entries for both Reynoldsburg and for 2509. These are totally independent taxes. One is for Reynoldsburg city tax, municipal tax, and one is for school district tax. They're totally independent of each other, and the poor resident who lives there pays both of them. So in the example on the left, we can see that we have a school district withholding. It shows 2509, and it's on the first line of the local state section of the W-2. This is probably an unusual case. Usually it'll appear second or after the first line, which is the example on the right. But in both cases, it is shown as 2509. Continuing on with our W-2 examples, on the left here, we see that the local school district tax is being reported as S.D.2509. You may also see it as just SD2509, with or without a space between the D and the 2509. In the example on the right, this is kind of an odd one, but we do see a few of these every year. The school district tax is, for some reason, buried in box 14, which is silly, but you will probably see that. And finally, let's talk about how to enter the SD withholding into TaxSlayer. So the slide here shows how we would enter the data for all of the previous examples that we showed. The school district withholding is always entered as the last entry on the W-2, as shown here. We always use simply the 4-digit numeric code. In other words, 2509 for the locality name. We don't use SD 2509 or any variation thereof. And finally, we never enter the school district withholding in box 14 like one of those W-2 examples shown. It is always entered here into the state and local information. Thanks for watching part 1 of this video, which covers the basics of the school district tax. Please continue on with parts 2 and beyond. Links to our FAQs and useful websites are posted in the description below the video. If you have questions or comments, leave me a comment on the YouTube channel or ping me on Slack or send me email at timmythetaxman@gmail.com.